The old Velari teacher settled his 4 legs beneath his body and looked out at the young ones gathered before him. Their scales shimmered in the soft light of the learning chamber, their eyes wide and eager. This was always his favorite day of the teaching cycle, the day when he told them about the humans. "Gather close," he said, his voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen much. "Today I will tell you why we learn about the strange creatures from the 3rd planet of Sol. Today I will tell you about the humans." The young ones moved closer, their tails curling with excitement. They had heard whispers from older siblings and parents. Everyone knew this story, but hearing it from a teacher made it real. Far across the galaxy, in a great floating station called the Circle of Voices, representatives from 100 different species were having the same thought at the same moment. It was the anniversary. 300 years since first contact with humanity. 300 years since everything changed. Ambassador Crix of the Thenari Collective stood before the gathered leaders. His insect-like body clicked as he moved, and his compound eyes reflected the faces of every being in the room. "We have all heard the old stories," he began, "but our children are forgetting. They see humans walking among us now. They see them as friends, as traders, as neighbors. They do not remember what it was like before. They do not understand why we must never forget." A murmur went through the chamber. The Velari delegate nodded her long neck in agreement. The Kroth ambassador, massive and covered in stone-like skin, rumbled his approval. "Then let us remember together," said the Eldari representative, her voice like music. "Let us speak of how we first met the humans, and why every species must teach their young about them." The story began, as all such stories do, with fear. 312 years ago, the galaxy was a different place. The great civilizations had long since stopped warring with each other. The Circle of Voices had brought peace for 10,000 years. Each species had its place, its role, its purpose. The Velari were scientists and healers. The Thenari were builders and engineers. The Kroth were protectors, their great strength used to keep the peace. The Eldari were diplomats and artists. And so it went, with each of the 100 species knowing exactly who they were and what they were meant to do. They called themselves the Ordered Ones, and they believed they had achieved perfection. Then the scouts found Earth. The first reports were confusing. The planet was small, covered mostly in water, and orbiting a very ordinary yellow star. The dominant species appeared to be a type of soft, fleshy creature that walked on 2 legs. They had no scales, no shells, no claws worth mentioning. They were weak and slow and fragile. But they had nuclear weapons and space stations, and they were just starting to reach beyond their own moon. "They are bobbies," the Thenari scout reported back. "Dangerous bobbies, perhaps, but bobbies nonetheless. They have not yet learned to be civilized." The Circle of Voices debated what to do. Some wanted to make contact immediately, to bring these humans into the great family of ordered species. Others wanted to wait and watch. A few, mostly among the Kroth, suggested that perhaps these humans should be dealt with before they became a problem. In the end, they decided to observe. They sent hidden ships to watch. They studied human radio signals and television broadcasts. They learned human languages and human history. What they found terrified them. "They are insane," reported the Velari science team after 100 years of study. "They fight wars over invisible beings they call gods. They kill each other for the color of their skin. They destroy their own planet even as they live on it. They are the most violent, chaotic, unpredictable species we have ever encountered." The Kroth Military Council reviewed the data and came to a grim conclusion. "They will come for us someday," the war chief said. "They are already reaching into space. In a few hundred years, maybe 1,000, they will find us. And when they do, they will try to conquer us. It is what they do. It is all they know how to do." The debate in the Circle of Voices was long and bitter. The Eldari pleaded for patience and understanding. The Thenari pointed out that humans had also created great art and music and literature. The Velari noted their impressive scientific progress despite their short lives and violent nature. But the evidence was hard to ignore. Humans had a word for what they did to species weaker than themselves. They called it extinction. They had done it to thousands of species on their own planet. The great animals, the gentle creatures, the beautiful birds, all gone because humans wanted their land or their food or simply did not care. The Croth proposal gained support. Perhaps they argued it would be a mercy, a swift strike before the humans could reach the stars. One planet sterilized to save 1,000. It was mathematics, not cruelty. The vote was scheduled. The fleets were prepared. The circle of voices was ready to do something it had never done in 10,000 years of peace. And then the humans did something no one expected. They stopped. A young Velari in the learning chamber raised her tiny claw. "Teacher, what do you mean they stopped? Stopped what?" The old teacher smiled, showing his worn teeth. "That is the first lesson about humans, little one. They can always surprise you. They stopped killing each other. Not all at once, not perfectly, but they stopped the worst of it. The great nations put away their biggest weapons. The walls between peoples began to fall. They started to heal their dying planet." The young one's eyes grew wide. How? No one knows for certain. Perhaps they were lucky. Perhaps they simply grew up. But in the span of one human generation, less than 50 years, they changed. They went from being the most dangerous species in the galaxy to something else, something no one had ever seen before. Back in the circle of voices, Ambassador Crix continued the story. "Our scouts watched in disbelief as the humans transformed. They created a government for their entire world. Not a perfect one, but one that worked. They focused their violence outward into space, but not against living things. They fought their own nature, their own worst impulses, and they won." The Eldari representative spoke up. "And when they finally reached the stars, when they finally found us, what did they do? What did these former monsters, these chaos beings, these unpredictable humans do when they met the perfect ordered ones?" The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew the answer, but it still had the power to move them. "They wanted to be friends," said Crix. "They came with open hands and open hearts. They came with gifts. They came with questions. They came with that strange human thing they call hope." The first contact had been with a Thenari trading vessel near the edge of their territory. The human ship was small and crude by galactic standards. Its crew of 7 men and women should have been terrified when they encountered the massive insectoid beings of the Thenari. Instead, one of the humans had smiled, held out her hand, and said, "Hello there. We've been looking for you for a very long time." The Thenari captain, confused and alarmed, had asked what the humans wanted. "To meet you," the woman had said. "To learn from you, to share what we are with what you are. We've spent so long alone, you see. We thought we might be the only ones. Finding you feels like a miracle." A miracle. The ordered ones had no word for that concept in any of their languages. They had to borrow it from the humans along with so many other words that followed. Hope, faith, dream, adventure, hero. The humans had so many words for things that didn't exist yet, but might someday. The circle of voices had prepared for war. Instead, they got something far more dangerous. They got humanity's friendship. In the first years after contact, the ordered ones tried to fit humans into their system. Every species had a role after all. The Velari healed. The Thenari built. The Croth protected. What would humans do? The answer was everything. The first human scientists arrived at Velari research stations eager to learn. They absorbed knowledge with a hunger that amazed their teachers. But they didn't just learn. They questioned. They experimented. They combined ideas in ways that had never been considered. "This is not how it works," a senior Velari researcher told his human student after she proposed a radical new treatment for a disease that had plagued the Croth for centuries. "We have studied this problem for 8,000 years. You cannot simply come up with a solution in one afternoon. The human had smiled in that strange way humans did. Why not? Because that is not how it is done. But what if it works? It worked. The treatment was not perfect, but it opened new paths of research that had been considered closed. Within a decade, the disease was cured. The Croth, massive and proud and fierce, wept with gratitude. They gave the human scientist their highest honor, naming her a sister of stone and swearing their eternal protection to her family line. The Thenari had similar experiences. Human engineers looked at their great building machines and asked questions that had simple answers, or what should have been simple answers. Why do your ships only travel at half-light speed? A human engineer asked. Because that is the limit of safe travel, the Thenari builder replied. Beyond that speed, the risks become too great. What risks exactly? Navigation becomes difficult. Energy consumption increases dramatically. The hull stress approaches dangerous levels. The human engineer nodded, scribbling notes. So it's not that you can't go faster. It's that you haven't figured out how to solve those problems yet. We have calculated that the problems cannot be solved. The mathematics are clear. The human looked at the calculations. He stared at them for a long time. Then he laughed. Oh, I see. You assumed constant acceleration. But what if you pulse the drive in a specific pattern? What if you surf the gravity wells instead of fighting them? That is not possible. Have you tried it? They had not tried it. In 10,000 years of building ships, the Thenari had never tried it because they had calculated that it was impossible. Calculations did not lie. Mathematics was pure. But the human convinced them to test his theory, just once, just to prove him wrong. The test ship reached 0.8 light speed, then 0.9. The Thenari engineers watched their instruments in disbelief as every rule they had known crumbled before their compound eyes. How? The chief builder demanded. How did you see what we could not see? The human shrugged. Maybe because you told me it was impossible. Where I come from, that usually means no one has tried hard enough yet. This pattern repeated across the galaxy. Humans arrived as students and became teachers. They came to learn and ended up changing everything they touched, not because they were smarter than the ordered ones. Often they were less intelligent, less patient, less careful, but they had something the ancient species had lost long ago. They had imagination. The ordered ones had perfected their societies so thoroughly that change had become almost impossible. Each generation passed knowledge to the next without question. Each species performed its role without deviation. It was efficient. It was stable. It was dead. Humans were the opposite of dead. They were chaos walking, but it was a creative chaos. They broke rules not because they were rebellious, but because they genuinely did not understand why the rules existed in the first place. Your art is beautiful, an Eldari artist told a human painter. But you have mixed the styles of 3 different schools. You cannot do that. Each school has its traditions, its methods, its meanings. To combine them is to dilute all of them. The human painter stepped back and looked at her work. Really, because I think it looks pretty good. It is technically proficient, but it is wrong. Wrong according to whom? According to the traditions of our people. According to 10,000 years of artistic development, according to the masters who came before. The human smiled. That sounds like a lot of dead people telling us what to do. What about what we think? What about what feels true right now in this moment? The Eldari artist was scandalized. She reported the conversation to her guild. The masters gathered to discuss this human heresy. And then something strange happened. One of the younger masters, barely 300 years old, spoke up. Perhaps, she said quietly, the human has a point. Perhaps we have been copying the past for so long that we have forgotten how to create the future. The room erupted in outrage, but the seed was planted. Within a generation, Eldari art began to change, not to become human but to remember what it had once been, alive, dynamic, surprising. The humans brought another gift as well, one that was harder to measure but perhaps more important than all the others. They brought stories. The ordered ones had histories, they had records, they had data, but humans had stories in a way that was fundamentally different. They told tales of heroes who failed but kept fighting. They sang songs of love that lasted beyond death. They wrote books about impossible things that somehow felt more true than reality. Why do you tell stories about things that never happened? A young Velari asked a human storyteller. Because sometimes the things that never happened are the most important things of all, the human replied. A story can teach you who you want to be. It can show you what you might become. It can make you believe in things that don't exist yet. But that is inefficient. Why not simply teach facts? Because facts tell you what is. Stories tell you what could be. The young Velari thought about this for a long time. Then she went home and told her children a story she made up herself. It was clumsy and simple and not very good, but it was hers, and her children loved it. That night in one small Velari home, something changed. The mother had remembered how to dream. This was the humans' true gift and their true danger. They reminded the galaxy how to hope. But not everyone welcomed this change. The old ways had brought peace for 10,000 years. The ordered system worked. Why should it change simply because some strange soft creatures from a backwater planet asked uncomfortable questions? The resistance to humanity grew quietly at first. Whispers in the halls of power. Concerns raised in private meetings. Fears that were never spoken aloud but spread like poison through the highest levels of every government. They are changing us, a senior Kroth general told his council, and we do not know what we are becoming. Is that not the definition of danger? They have brought no weapons against us, another replied. They have started no wars. Their influence is entirely peaceful. Is it? Or is it simply a weapon we do not recognize? They are rewriting our cultures, our traditions, our very ways of thinking. In 1,000 years, what will be left of us? Will we still be Kroth? Will the Velari still be Velari? Or will we all be some strange mix, neither human nor ourselves? The fear was real. The fear was valid. And the fear would soon lead to the first great crisis between humanity and the ordered ones. In the learning chamber, the old Velari teacher paused his story. The young ones were transfixed, their meals forgotten, their eyes locked on his face. What happened? One of them whispered. What did the fearful ones do? The teacher's face grew sad. They did what the fearful always do. They tried to destroy what they did not understand. They tried to kill hope itself. The Coalition of Purity, as they called themselves, was formed in secret. Its members came from every species, united by their fear of change. They did not hate humans. Many of them had never even met a human. They simply wanted the galaxy to return to what it had been before. Their plan was simple. If they could make first contact fail, if they could turn the good relationship between humans and the ordered ones into war, then everything would go back to normal. The humans would be destroyed or contained. The old ways would return. They chose a human colony world called New Hope. The name was almost too perfect. New Hope was a young world, settled by pioneers who wanted to build something new. Its population was only 50,000 humans, along with a small number of aliens who had come to live and work alongside them. The colony was far from Earth, far from the main trade routes, far from anyone who might help. The Coalition sent a Kroth war fleet, 300 ships, crewed by loyal followers who believed they were saving the galaxy. They were told that the humans of New Hope had committed terrible crimes. They were told that this was a lawful action, approved by the Circle of Voices itself. Both of these things were lies. The attack came at dawn on the colony's founding day. The humans were gathered in their central square, celebrating with music and dancing and food. Children ran between the legs of adults. Old couples held hands and remembered the journey that had brought them here. Then the sky filled with fire. The first wave of the attack destroyed the colony's communication systems. The second wave targeted their power grid. The third wave began landing troops. The humans of New Hope had no military. They had no weapons beyond hunting rifles and farming tools. They had no chance. But they fought anyway. This was the moment that changed everything. Not the attack itself, but what happened next. A young human woman named Sarah Chen was a teacher at the colony school. When the Kroth soldiers came, she gathered her students, 43 children of various species, and hid them in the basement of her building. She told them to be quiet. She told them to stay hidden. Then she went outside to face the soldiers alone. The Kroth commander found her standing in the street with her arms spread wide, blocking the path to the school. "Move," he ordered. "There are children in there," she said. "Some of them are Kroth children, your people's children. They are contaminated. They have lived among humans. They must be cleansed." Sarah Chen did not move. She was shaking with fear, but she did not move. "You will have to kill me first," she said. The commander raised his weapon, and something strange happened. He hesitated. He looked into this small human's eyes and saw something he did not understand. She was afraid, he could see that clearly, but she was not going to run. She was not going to beg. She was going to stand there and die for children who were not even her own species. "Why?" he asked, genuinely confused. "You cannot win. You are one human against an army. The children will still be taken. Your death will accomplish nothing." Sarah Chen smiled through her tears. "Maybe," she said, "but I have to try. I have to try because if I don't, what's the point of any of this? What's the point of coming to the stars if we forget who we are along the way? I'm a teacher. I protect children. That's what I do. That's who I am." The commander stood frozen. Behind him, his soldiers waited for orders. The moment stretched on and on. And then from the basement of the school, a small voice called out. A Kroth child, barely 10 years old, pushed open the door and walked into the street. "Teacher Chen," the child said, using the human honorific. "Don't be afraid, we're with you." One by one, the other children emerged. Kroth and human and Velari and Thenari, children of a dozen species, walking out to stand behind their teacher. The commander looked at his army. He looked at the teacher. He looked at the children. He lowered his weapon. "This is wrong," he said. "This whole thing is wrong." His soldiers did not know what to do. Some of them had already begun to have doubts. The propaganda had told them this would be a military target, not a settlement of families and children. Before anyone could decide what happened next, the sky filled with new ships. The Circle of Voices had learned of the Coalition's secret attack. The Eldari Diplomatic Corps had traced the conspiracy. The legitimate Kroth government, horrified to learn that their own people were being used as weapons, had sent a rescue fleet at maximum speed. The battle in orbit was brief and one-sided. The Coalition fleet, outnumbered and now leaderless, surrendered within minutes. The soldiers on the ground put down their weapons and waited to face judgment. But that was not the end of the story. That was the beginning. The trial of the Coalition was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. The evidence of their conspiracy was laid bare for all to see. But what captured the attention of trillions of beings was not the evidence or the arguments. It was Sarah Chen. She was called to testify about what had happened. She stood before the gathered representatives of 100 species and told her story in simple words. She spoke of her fear. She spoke of the children. She spoke of the choice she had made. "Why did you do it?" the prosecutor asked. "You knew you would die. You knew you could not save them. Why did you stand there?" Sarah Chen was quiet for a long moment. The whole galaxy waited for her answer. "Because hope is not about winning," she finally said. "Hope is about trying. Hope is about believing that what we do matters, even when we can't see how. Those children deserved someone who would stand up for them. They deserved to know that even in the darkest moment, someone cared enough to try. She looked around the vast chamber, at the alien faces staring at her. We came to the stars because we hoped we would find friends. We hoped we would find a galaxy where people of different worlds could live together in peace. That hope is worth dying for. It's worth living for too. The chamber was silent. Then slowly, the young Kroth commander who had faced her on New Hope stood up. His trial was still pending. He had every reason to stay quiet, to make no statements that might make his situation worse. "I was told humans were monsters," he said. "I was told they were dangerous and chaotic and destructive. I believed those lies because I was afraid. But when I looked into this woman's eyes, I saw something I recognized. I saw courage. I saw love. I saw everything we claim to value but have forgotten how to practice." He walked across the chamber until he stood before Sarah Chen. Then this massive stone-skinned warrior, trained since birth to show no weakness, knelt before a small human teacher. "I am sorry," he said. "I am sorry for what we tried to do, and I am grateful. You showed me who I want to be." The image of the Kroth warrior kneeling before the human teacher spread across the galaxy. It became one of the most famous images in the history of the Ordered Ones. It represented everything the Coalition had feared, and everything they had failed to understand. Humans were not dangerous because of their weapons, or their chaos, or their unpredictability. Humans were dangerous because they believed. They believed in hope and love and standing up for what was right, even when it was impossible, and that belief was contagious. The Coalition was dismantled. Its leaders were tried and punished, but the greater change was in the hearts and minds of ordinary beings across the galaxy. The story of Sarah Chen was told and retold. It was taught in schools. It was sung in songs. It became the first of many stories about humans that would be passed down through generations. And in every species, in every culture, parents began to tell their children about the strange, soft creatures from the third planet of Sol. They told them not to be afraid. They told them to be inspired. They told them about hope. 200 years had passed since the attack on New Hope. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Humans now lived on 100 worlds. They had married into alien families. They had raised children who were neither fully human nor fully anything else. The old teacher in the Velari learning chamber continued his story. The young ones were captivated, their earlier restlessness completely forgotten. "The story of Sarah Chen was just the beginning," he said. "In the years that followed, humans showed us again and again who they truly were. They showed us in ways both great and small." He told them about the burning of Thera, when a massive solar flare threatened to destroy an entire Thenari colony world. The evacuation ships could not arrive in time. Millions would die. A human cargo captain named Marcus Webb changed course to help. His ship was not designed for rescue operations. It was old and slow and could only carry a few hundred passengers at most. But he went anyway. "Every life matters," he told his crew. "If we can save even one family, it's worth trying." His ship made 17 trips to the surface, flying through radiation that slowly killed him and his crew. They saved 4,000 people before the flare hit. Marcus Webb died 3 days later, his body destroyed by the radiation but his spirit unbroken. The Thenari built a statue of him in their capital city. It still stands today, a monument to a man who gave everything for people he had never met. The old teacher told them about the Plague of Sorrows, when a mysterious disease swept through the Eldari homeworld. Their famous healers and scientists could find no cure. Millions died, and more were dying every day. Human doctors and researchers flooded into Eldari space. They worked alongside their alien colleagues, combining human creativity with Eldari wisdom. The cure, when it came, was discovered by a mixed team led by a young human woman named Dr. Lisa Ackefer. The disease was a puzzle, Dr. Ackefer explained later. And humans are good at puzzles. We look at problems differently than other species. Sometimes that difference is exactly what's needed. The Eldari offered her their highest honor. They wanted to make her an eternal singer, a title given to only a handful of beings in their entire history. She refused. "I don't deserve honors," she said. "The honor goes to the Eldari doctors who trained me, and to the patients who trusted me, and to everyone who worked together to find the answer. I just happened to be the one who put the last piece in place." Her humility was harder for the Eldari to understand than her brilliance. In their culture, achievements were meant to be celebrated and claimed. The idea that someone would refuse glory for the sake of others was strange and wonderful. The old teacher told the young ones about the trade war of 7 suns, when economic conflicts threatened to tear the galactic community apart. Ancient treaties were breaking down. Species that had been friends for millennia were becoming enemies. A human diplomat named James Monroe traveled from world to world, talking to leaders and common people alike. He did not try to impose solutions. He did not make threats or promises. He simply listened. "Everyone feels wronged," he reported to the circle of voices. "Everyone has legitimate grievances. The problem is that no one is listening to anyone else. They're all so busy being right that they've forgotten how to understand." His solution was radical. He proposed something called the Walking Together Protocol. Instead of meeting in formal halls with formal procedures, the leaders of the warring factions would walk together on neutral ground. No guards, no advisors, no formal clothing. Just leaders walking and talking like ordinary beings. The Kroth High General laughed at the idea. "You want me to walk beside my enemy with no protection? That is suicide." "That's trust," Monroe replied. "You can't build peace on suspicion. You have to take a risk. You have to show that you believe in the other person's good intentions, even when you're not sure." The High General agreed, reluctantly. So did the Thenari Trade Master and the Eldari Prime Singer and a dozen other leaders. They walked together for 3 days through the ancient forests of a neutral world. They talked about their fears and their hopes. They discovered that their enemies were not so different from themselves. The trade war ended not with a treaty but with understanding. The Walking Together Protocol became a standard part of galactic diplomacy. It was one of humanity's most lasting contributions to the culture of the Ordered Ones. The old teacher paused and looked at his students. Their eyes were bright with wonder. "These are the stories we tell," he said. "These are the reasons we teach our young about humanity, not because humans are perfect. They are far from perfect. They make mistakes. They sometimes fail. They can be foolish and short-sighted and stubborn." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "But they never give up. They never stop hopping. They never stop believing that tomorrow can be better than today. And that belief, little ones, is the most powerful force in the universe." Far away, in the circle of voices, Ambassador Crix was making the same point. "We invited the humans to join us because we thought they would become ordered," he said. "We thought they would learn our ways and settle into a role like every other species. Instead, they taught us that order without hope is just another form of death." The Velari delegate nodded. "Before the humans came, we healed bodies. Now we heal spirits as well. We learned that from them." The Thenari representative spoke up. "We built according to what was known. Now we build according to what might be. The humans showed us how to dream again." The Kroth War Chief, descendant of warriors who had once planned to destroy humanity, stood proudly. "We protected what existed. Now we protect what will be. Our children no longer fear the future. They embrace it." The Eldari Prime Singer let her voice fill the chamber with music. "We made art that preserved the past. Now our art creates the future. Human imagination flows through every song we sing." All around the circle of voices, representatives of 100 species shared what humanity had given them. It was not technology or knowledge or power. It was something far more valuable. It was hope. But Ambassador Crix raised a cautionary note. We must remember, though, that humans are not gods. They are not saviors. They are beings like ourselves, capable of great good and great harm. The stories we tell must include their failures as well as their triumphs. He called up a holographic display. Images appeared of human wars, human cruelty, human destruction, the long history of violence that had made the ordered ones fear humanity in the first place. They overcame these darker angels of their nature, Crix said, but they could always fall again. We teach our children about humanity not just to inspire them, but to remind them that civilization is fragile. Hope must be actively chosen. Peace must be constantly rebuilt. This was the deeper lesson, the one that the old Velari teacher now shared with his students. Humans show us what we might become, he said. Both the good and the bad. They show us that we have a choice. Every day, every moment, we choose who we are. The humans chose to be better. They chose to reach for the stars instead of reaching for weapons. They chose to build bridges instead of walls. He gathered the young ones closer. You will meet humans in your lives. You will work with them, perhaps live among them. Some of you may even love them. When you do, remember these stories. Remember that they came from darkness into light. Remember that they changed themselves and then changed us. He smiled, showing his worn teeth again. And remember that you can do the same. You can choose hope. You can choose to believe in impossible things. You can choose to stand up for others, even when you are afraid. That is the lesson of humanity. That is why every species in the galaxy teaches their young about the strange, soft creatures from Sol. The lesson ended, and the young ones departed, their minds full of wonder and their hearts full of new dreams. The old teacher watched them go and felt, for the first time in many years, that the future would be good. In the great hall of the Circle of Voices, the anniversary ceremony was reaching its climax. Representatives of all the species that had been touched by humanity stood together in a display of unity that would have been unthinkable 300 years ago. And then the human ambassador rose to speak. Her name was Elena Torres, and she was the 7th generation of her family to serve in space. Her great-great-great-great-grandmother had been one of the first humans to shake hands with an alien being. Her line had helped build the bridge between worlds. "My friends," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber, "we are honored by your remembrance of our arrival among you. We are humbled by the stories you tell about us. But I must confess something that we humans have known for a very long time." She paused, looking out at the thousands of alien faces watching her. "We are not special," she said. "We are not heroes. We are not messengers of hope sent to transform the galaxy. We are simply human, flawed, fragile, often foolish. We make mistakes constantly. We argue among ourselves about things that don't matter. We sometimes forget the lessons of our own history." The chamber was silent, confused. This was not the speech they had expected. "But here is what I want you to understand," Elena continued. "Everything we are, everything we have done, everything you have learned from us, it was always inside you too. We did not bring hope to the galaxy. We simply reminded you that hope was always there." She called up images on the display. Not human images this time, but alien ones. The Velari healer who had defied tradition to save a dying human child. The Thenari engineer who had risked everything to help a stranded human ship. The Kroth warrior who had chosen mercy over obedience. The Eldari artist who had painted a vision of the future that inspired 3 generations. "These are your stories," Elena said. "These are your heroes. You tell tales of Sarah Chen and Marcus Webb and all the others, but look at what your own people have done. Look at how you have changed. Look at how you have grown." She stepped down from the speaking platform and walked among the delegates. We humans have a saying. We say that courage is contagious, that hope spreads, that kindness multiplies. We believed this before we met you, but you have proven it true beyond anything we imagined. She stopped before the Velari delegate. Your people now train their children in empathy as well as science. That was not our idea. That was yours. She moved to the Thenari section. Your engineers have built wonders we could never have conceived. You took the spark we offered and created a bonfire of innovation. She approached the Kroth war chief. Your warriors now see protection as more than just fighting. They guard hope itself. That is not something we taught you. That is something you chose. Finally, she stood before the Eldari Prime Singer. Your art now speaks to the deepest parts of every species. It builds bridges between minds and hearts. We gave you nothing but questions. You created the answers. Elena returned to the center of the chamber. So when you teach your young about humanity, tell them this as well. Tell them that they are not learning about strangers from a distant world. They are learning about themselves. They are learning about the potential that lives in every heart, regardless of species or world or form. She smiled, and in her smile was the warmth of generations of humans who had reached out across the void seeking friends. We are all in this together, human and Velari and Thenari and Kroth and Eldari and all the rest. We are family now, and the best families lift each other up. The chamber erupted in approval. Beings of every shape and size rose to their feet, tentacles and claws and hands all raised in celebration. For a moment in that great hall, there was no difference between species. There was only joy. And far away, in a small Velari learning chamber, the old teacher felt a warmth in his heart. He did not know what was happening at the circle of voices, but he felt its echo nonetheless. He turned to the window and looked up at the stars. "Thank you," he whispered to the distant world called Earth. "Thank you for reminding us who we are." The stars twinkled in response, as they had for billions of years and would for billions more. And somewhere among them, on 100 worlds, on 1,000 ships, in countless hearts and minds, hope continued to spread. Because that was what hope did. It grew. The next morning, in learning chambers across the galaxy, teachers of every species gathered their young ones close and began the old story once more. "Let me tell you about the humans," they said. "Let me tell you why we never forget them." And the children listened, their eyes wide with wonder, as they learned about the strange, soft creatures from Sol who had taught the galaxy to dream again. The story would continue, passed from generation to generation, changing and growing as all good stories do. New chapters would be added as new heroes emerged. New lessons would be learned as new challenges were faced. But the core of the story would always remain the same. Hope was real, hope was contagious, and hope once kindled could never truly be extinguished. That was the legacy of humanity. That was why every alien species taught their young about the third planet of Sol. And that was why, 300 years after first contact, the galaxy was still looking to the stars with wonder in their hearts. Because the humans had shown them how.